States of Fragility 2016 Understanding Violence has three parts to it. The first one is a sort of expose of the state of violence in the world today, looking at how different forms of violence, so political violence, social violence and interpersonal violence, are affecting fragility in the world today, how they're impacting on different dimensions of fragility, what that means for women and children, talking about things like terrorism, talking about things like extremism, but also looking at how violence impacts on the everyday lives of people around the world. So that's the first bit. The second is our new multidimensional framework. So thinking more about the reality, if you like, of fragility in different places around the world, the political parts of fragility, the social parts of fragility, so the way that social cleavages and society fit in, the economic aspects, so how economic instability and inequalities drive fragility, looking at the environmental aspects, so how things like natural disasters and diseases and pollution levels impact on fragility, and also looking at the political aspects, so how unstable institutions and patronage and corruption, lack of transparency, how that also can drive fragility. We talk about the financial flows to fragile contexts, so there's an enormous amount of money that goes into fragile contexts. In terms of aid, it's 64% of the global aid count goes to fragile contexts, but very unequally distributed from one country to another. And also how, on average, fragile contexts are more aid dependent than others. So really getting aid right in these contexts is very important. It's a very big player in fragile contexts. We talk about middle income countries. 29 of the 56 are middle income countries. Something we really haven't thought about enough in the past is how we need to deal with that in middle income countries. And looking at the types of the way that aid is spent, so that a lot of it is being spent on firefighting and perhaps not enough on the harder to do, intangible, long-term type of aspects like healing social problems. And we came up with a number of recommendations, some that are applicable at home, so how we can change domestic legislation around tax havens and financial flows, how we can look at things like ensuring freedom of the press, how we address war crimes, how we look at landmines and how those impact on developing countries. Also looking at the importance of conflict, prevention of conflict and prevention of violence, and how we can't just wait till violence is happening. We look at where we need to recalibrate programming, how we need to look more at social cleavages, for example, around reconciliation. And then finally, we look at finance and the different financial recommendations, how we need to develop a better understanding of what works and what doesn't in terms of financial assistance for countries in fragility. So that's basically a very quick overview of the report.